Race thoughts to be denied. An article by Charles Fillmore. Mind has a definite object in its creations. That object is use. A creation that is not useful to the creator has no place in existence. Working through man is to form a consciousness that will be useful in carrying out the creative plans of universal good. Thus, it devolves upon man to form his consciousness so that it will harmonize with divine ideals. To do this, he must exercise the faculty of discrimination. He must choose from the great storehouse of God those potentialities best suited to his needs. All men at all times exercise discrimination. We are every moment choosing to do this or that, choosing to think this way or that way, and we always get results according to the wisdom with which we have chosen. To exercise choice without knowing how to choose the best is blundering ignorance. Yet men and women are not always wise in choosing those conditions which are for their highest welfare. The cry goes up continually, for of all sad words of tongue or pen, the saddest are these, "It might have been." Unwise choosing always arises from lack of understanding. If men knew how to choose, they would always choose well, and satisfaction would follow. Understanding is of spirit, and only those who look to spirit for wisdom will choose with regard to the ultimate good of themselves and the creative whole. When man knows his place in creation and his relation to being, he opens out his mind on a higher plane. What was the unknowable becomes the known, and what was mysterious becomes plain. Spiritual things are spiritually discerned, and this faculty of knowing opens inward instead of outward. It is not a knowledge gained from the world, from the study of nature or of books, but all things are made plain to the one who studies in spirit and with spirit. Having raised himself from a contemplation of himself as flesh and blood to a realization of his spiritual being, man cannot help seeing things spiritually, and to see them spiritually is to see them truly. To choose wisely after seeing truly follows as a matter of course. Those who have not learned that mind is reality, and that ideas are the generating energy back of all existence, have believed that choice could be exercised with tangible results only in the domain of things. They have thought that in order to get health, medication was necessary, or food, or water, or climate. That money could be had only by looking to money itself as the object sought. That wisdom could be acquired only from those who had wisdom. That the real things were those in sight, and that aside from these there was no source for anything. But it has been found by students of mind that all things that appear depend for their existence on that which does not appear. The truth is that the things that are seen have no originating power in themselves. Paul states this truth, so that what is seen hath not been made out of things which appear. All who have thought deeply and seriously about creation have arrived at this conclusion, but only the few have discovered that it is possible for man consciously to enter that interior realm of cause and manipulate its factors. No discovery is of greater importance than this, that ideas stand as cause to all that appears, and that man can control ideas. This is the summum bonum of knowledge. When man knows this and sets about using his knowledge, he ceases to be an ordinary man. He becomes extraordinary. He is counted as a Christ man because he is exercising the creative powers of being. When man learns that he has power to change all things about him, including his body, by changing his ideas, he ceases to deal with anything less than ideas. If ideas have within them all the causing power, he knows that a quick and sure way to bring about reform in body and affairs is to cast out the old and bring in the new causing factors. This process is so simple and so easy that the intellectually wise pass it by as foolish. Yet we are told that we must become as little children before we can enter the kingdom of heaven, and we find that we must be as simple in this practice of realizing truth as the little child just lisping its first words. The whole secret is in denial by word, silently or aloud, of those conditions which we do not want, and in affirmation, silently or aloud, of those conditions which we do want. This is exercising discrimination in the realm of ideas, and the fruit of our choice always shows forth in the realm of effects. We do know that God is spirit, all-wise, all-powerful, and all-present. Knowing this, our first step in the practice of truth is to bring ourselves into unity with this mighty presence, regardless of appearances and sense environments. There lurks in sense consciousness a subtle belief that we lack the power to do this. Hence, our first denial should be of this idea of powerlessness. Its negativeness will weigh us down and keep us from saying the true words unless we dissolve it and let into our consciousness the mighty power of God. A belief in evil, whether personalized as devil or made a principle as the universal opposite of good, is almost without exception found entrenched in the minds of humanity. Nearly all fear and weakness have origin in this race belief in a power opposed to the good, a belief that this evil power in the world is more potent than God. God is good and God is all, is a statement that no one disputes. The narrowest, most creed-bound Orthodox Christian will accede to this proposition without a moment's hesitation. It is a self-evident truth which the mind unhesitatingly accepts without question. It is one of those clear-cut propositions that admit of no argument. It has no opposite upon which to hang a thread of negation, and the mind accepts it without doubt of its truth, as it does the statement that 2 times 2 equals 4. The average man of the world accepts this belief without thinking deeply about it because he is universally taught by press, pulpit, and pedagogue that God cannot be anything but good. He who contemplates in spirit and looks to mind for truth arrives at the same conclusion. God is good, and the spiritually inspired become glorified with this transcendent truth. O my brothers, God exists. There is a soul at the center of nature and over the will of every man, so that none of us can wrong the universe. In the Hindu sacred scripture, the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna said to Arjuna, "The man whose mind is endued with devotion and looks on all things alike, beholds the Supreme Soul in all things and all things in the Supreme Soul." God constantly whispers this great truth in the inner sanctuary of every man's soul. He who listens there always hears it, and he sees no reality in evil from that time, henceforth and forever. Yet from the sense plane of perception, appearances indicate evil as a working principle, and there inheres in the sense consciousness a conviction that evil has foundation somewhere in being. So long as this belief holds place in the consciousness, man will look upon evil as reality, and he will fear its consequences. So, the wise one must deal with this belief intelligently. He must reveal to his own consciousness its unreality in principle. Evil and sin are from the same root and both are susceptible of intelligent explanation. We count as evil that which does not bring us good results, and the word sin is attached to those premeditated or willfully indulged in acts that we have learned by experience result in discord, inharmony, and unhappiness. Evil and sin are not causes, but results. Hence they cannot by any possibility be placed among principles. God is life, love, substance, spirit, and abstract perfection. Man is the instrument through which these attributes of God are made concrete. Man exercises free volition in his work. When he fails to do it intelligently, he has sinned. He has fallen short. Fallen short is the original meaning of the Greek word from which our word, sin, is derived. Effects may become secondary causes through the thinking faculty of man, and when the whole race comes to believe a certain thing, it generates, through that belief, the thing itself as an active force. It is the experience of people that, after violent exercise, getting in a cool draft of air will produce congestion of the fluids of the body, commonly called a cold. This idea has become fixed in the minds of the people, and they are born with the inherited belief that a cool draft of air gives them a cold, although the conditions under which this belief had its origin do not exist in their cases at all. So, men have transgressed the law of their being and have received discord. This effect they have named sin and evil, and through their own formative and generative thought, they have sent it out into the world as a causing factor. Thus sin and evil have become mental burdens which the entire race carries in addition to the original effect, or falling short. This belief has been added to, age after age, by everyone who believed in it or feared it and sought to combat it. For ages, it has been personalized as the devil. Then, when the higher reason saw the inconsistency of a God only good, creating a devil to oppose himself, the devil and his place of abode were annihilated. But, the belief still inhering in the mind and claiming recognition, the next step was to believe that there was a great negative side to nature, or God, out of which came that condition called evil. The majority of mentally free people have that belief today. But spiritual discernment shows that there is not even a negative side to God, or nature. that this plane of opposites is apparent to human sense only. When man makes the at-one-ment with his higher consciousness, the Christ, he beholds the relation of principles and truth, and as he proceeds to carry out in his thinking these right relations, nature and the whole universe of effects begin to take on an entirely different character. Where man saw discord, he now sees harmony, and where he saw evil, good comes uppermost of necessity, because conditions have been made right and only good can come. So we find that it is not only necessary to deny the belief of sin and evil out of the consciousness, but also to put ourselves in such relation to God that only good results will flow from our thoughts and deeds. To deny evil out of mind and affirm good is but the first step out of bondage. If we continue to do those things which brought about the belief in evil, we are running in a circle. And if we continue to do certain things which bring no permanent satisfaction, it is evident that we are holding certain ideas of their legitimacy, or we should not do them. Do not try to reform yourself without first going to the plane of causes, which is always the mind. But if you find that a so-called physical act brings weakness and discomfort, you should deal with its mental cause first. Then, by denial and restraint and affirmation of the opposite, the reformation is made complete. The appetites and passions of the human family as we find them today are abnormally developed, and we never shall attain that spiritual condition to which we aspire until they are restrained and spiritually disciplined. We eat and drink more than we require because the idea of eating and drinking has been cultivated. By overeating, we fill the system to repletion with the grosser life forces, which react upon the passions, which in their turn are allowed full sway to the end that the entire physical organism, in due time, is filled with discord, weariness, weakness, and finally death. With our ideas we manage this whole machinery, but we should remember that ideas have their secondary causes, that is, ideas become incarnated, take form. The body, with all its intricate and wonderful organs, is the incarnation of a great idea somewhere in being that man has caught and worked out through millions of years of experience. Each organ in the body is the incarnation of an idea, and that idea incarnated in that organ is itself a thinking, generative center, under control, of course, of the self-conscious one pervading the whole. But the great majority of people do not exercise the directive power of the free eye with discrimination. Past ideas have become incarnated in their bodily organs and are thinking and acting after old patterns, while the free eye is deluded with the belief that his superior will is being obeyed. In this state of affairs, denial and affirmation should go into the very vitals of the system. If you are following your desire, so-called, and are getting poor returns, rest assured that the root of that desire may be found in some idea incarnated in your organism, an idea which is carrying out its own sweet will, regardless of the higher wisdom. But it may not be your own particular idea that has been incarnated in that organ. As a race we are one, and the belief in body is one consciousness. So we say that certain beliefs are inherited, but this inheritance can only be on the sense plane, because mind is free and independent of all such limitations. Man is given full and free dominion over all these beasts of the field, or ideas of the human consciousness, and it is his divine office to go into that department of being and change the ideas there reigning. We should be careful to discriminate between the fleshly organ and the idea which it represents. By studying organs, doctors attempt to get at causes of disease. The idea that is coexistent with the organ and invisible to sense makes the organ what it is. That idea can be reached only through a medium like itself, which is mind. Doctors agree that our bodies are undergoing constant change, that in less than 1 year's time, every person has formed an entirely new body, so far as constituent elements are concerned. It is a mystery to them, in the face of these facts, that diseased organs should constantly be built up, in their abnormal condition, when new, fresh elements are given them from the great storehouse of nature. They fail to see that the idea back of the organ decides its form, and that a false idea will take the pure essences of nature and build out of them a form of discord. All the elements of nature are pure. All the forces of existence are harmonious. But man, the supreme monarch in the realm of effects, may take those perfections of being and through his thinking make a world of sin, sickness, and death. He may so educate all his faculties that they will join in a state of consciousness in which these conditions become reality to them. The human race has so educated its faculties, and we live today in a world of so-called matter that has no reality outside of the five senses. It has come to be a fixed belief in the race mind that substance is that which can be seen and felt, that it has length and breadth and thickness, and that outside of these limited dimensions, substance does not exist. This belief must be dissolved in the consciousness before the real substance, of which matter is but the limited perception of the senses, will be revealed. This is an individual work, because it is through the generative thought of each member of the race that this delusion is sustained. So we take it up in mind and by denial cleanse the consciousness of its limited concepts. We affirm that larger perception of substance, the fourth dimension, into which it is the privilege of man to enter. Looking upon matter and things formed as the end and all of supply, men have sought to acquire the various forms of supply for their individual use, in the belief that it is limited as to quantity. Houses, lands, gold, silver, raiment, and the various products of nature have come to be looked upon as having value in themselves. The thought that things are valuable and that happiness accompanies their possession has become a race obsession. A great belief has formed in human consciousness that many material possessions are necessary to man's welfare. This belief is human selfishness. Not that the products of man's creative powers are evil, or that it is wrong for him to have whatever he needs, but the belief that the supply is limited has brought a new factor into the race consciousness. That new factor is greed. Spiritual man knows that supply is absolutely without limit in the omnipotent and omniscient providence of God. Whatever things man needs are, at his intelligent word, brought into visibility under divine law. The Father withholds nothing from the Son, when he is in understanding. If ye shall ask anything in my name, that will I do. But when the spiritual source is lost sight of and man grovels in the darkness of sense substance, he strives to lay up in barns and storehouses the things of earth, and in so doing he is not careful to see to it that his brother man does not lack. Generations of this greed for and acquirement of the things of the world of sense have led to unequal division. Some have acquired superabundance and others have been left with nothing. Looking upon his lack, man has come to say, "There is poverty." This image of lack has been held in mind until it has generated in human consciousness a secondary causing factor, known as poverty and want. Men have come to believe that riches and plenty on one hand and poverty and lack on the other are somehow interwoven in divine providence. This belief has been taught to them by the pulpit and ground into their very lives by hard experience. But we know that poverty is a human belief, like any other disease, and that its only permanent cure is in realization of its nothingness. When it is dissolved in consciousness, and the omnipresence and abundance of God's spirit substance are led into the mind, great and rapid transformations frequently take place in the affairs. The spirit substance of God is a mighty magnet that draws through invisible currents those things needed by the one who gives the spirit substance place in his mind. Wrong thinking and unwise use of the powers of soul and body by the man-ego brought discord into his members, and witnessing the effect of this discord in his body, he called it sickness and disease. Thus the idea of sickness and disease reflected into the consciousness becomes another secondary cause that has fastened itself upon the entire race. When these disturbing factors became so violent as to disintegrate the bodily members, man looked upon the result and called it death. Thus death became another destructive mental image, the generation of which in the race consciousness has slain its billions. So, in dealing with ideas, we must take these secondary beliefs into consideration and, by understanding and spiritual discipline, cast them out of consciousness. This casting out is part of the great regenerative process. End of article.